Hello there. It is great to be with you. And today I am joining you live from New York City. It is awesome to be back in New York. And well, I've been here a couple of times over the last 6 months. The city just feels like every time I come, I'm feeling more life being breathed back into New York after obviously an incredibly challenging 2020. And right now it's the middle of summer. So it's actually, the weather's not too hot and it's been really just lovely and fun catching up with, I have 2 kids living here, but also seeing some friends and meeting up with people who I've met over Zoom over the last 18 months. I've got to meet them in person. And yesterday I got to meet up with my friend Chester Elton for the first time. And it was awesome to catch up with him in person and to finally be able to give him a hug, because there's nothing like that in-person connection. So today's live stream is focused on helping you to be smarter and braver in the risks that you take in your life, in the chances you take, in the changes that you make. And I'm guessing that you, like me, and everyone else on this planet can look back and think of times where you wished you had been that bit braver, where you wished you'd taken that risk or put yourself out there. A few years ago, I was invited with my girlfriend to have a girls' morning out at a circus school in Washington, D.C. And we went to this place that was underneath the big tent where we were all given a lesson on how to basically go out from the platform above the net and do a little bit of swing along on the trapeze school, go along, fly through the air. We were supposed to put our feet over the bar, and then there was a trained acrobat, someone, maybe that was ex-Cirque du Soleil, who was going to come out and grab us, and we were going to film it. It was all going to be beautiful. And of course, I was like, that sounds cool. And when they were showing us at ground level how we should, go about doing it, honestly, I thought to myself, hey, I jumped out of a plane. I went parachuting back many years ago. This can't be that hard, right? The platform's only about 8 meters up or about 25 feet. Can't be that hard. And so then it was my turn, and I climbed up the rope ladder. And then when I got to the platform, I looked down and it just looked so far beneath me, a lot further than I had thought it would. And I was supposed to lean out and grab the bar, but I found myself freezing in terror. Like literally my body started to shake. And there was this guy behind me. I was in a harness. There was this strong, beefy guy behind me who was, said, I've got your back, you're good. There was the safety net beneath me. And so intellectually, I knew I couldn't hurt myself. I'd be more likely to hurt myself just, climbing up the rope ladder than I was going to be reaching out. But still, that fear, that emotion of fear just welled up in me, and I found myself frozen in terror. And it was kind of a bit embarrassing because, here I am. I talk to people and teach people about how to be brave. And there I was trying to do something that a few before me had done with actually a lot more ease than I was clearly going about it. And it was a little bit humiliating. And so my friends down on the ground were starting to yell up, find your courage, stop playing safe. They were announcing my book titles to me, and I was like, shut up. But then my fear of professional humiliation kicked in, and I decided, take a big, deep breath. With the fear running through my veins, I reached out, I grabbed the bar. I swang through the air, letting out an almighty shriek as I did, and forgot to put my knees over the bar and ended up falling onto the safety net. Now, of course, I was not hurt. But one thing that whole experience taught me was that we human beings are wired for safety. And so often that primitive emotion, that part of our brain, the amygdala, that's been there, it's not always thinking through like, oh, what would really serve me? It's like it's just focused on short-term play safe. And so often when we're thinking about what is it we should do, should we have that conversation with a colleague, with someone that works for us, with our boss, with our partner? Should we make a change in our career? Should we change jobs? Should we put our hand up and ask for something? Should we hold someone accountable? That fear of the immediate emotional, psychological discomfort kicks in and keeps us from doing the very thing that would serve us and serve others. And so the desire for short-term security, for short-term safety, continually steers us toward certainty, predictability, and away from taking a risk, sometimes the very risks that would serve us most. And it's why I wrote Stop Playing Safe, and I want to share with you today a little bit of research and some strategies from Stop Playing Safe, because I believe that this pandemic that we are not out of yet has only magnified our sensitivity to risk. And yet there are always opportunities that are born in these times of disruption. And I know that for you to seize those opportunities, for you to thrive in your life, for you to make the impact that you're capable of making as a leader in your own right and in your own way, is going to require you sometimes to just take that big brave breath and lean into that discomfort and reach out toward what it is that you want, despite the fear that you may feel. So firstly, number one is just acknowledge your fear. The fear that you don't own will own you. And it's important. It's like step one of, the 12-step programs, just acknowledge I'm going to have fear, and own that fear and ask yourself, what is it I'm really afraid of here? And the more you can sit with that question, what is it I'm really afraid of, and identify that fear, the less grip that fear has over you. Secondly, to make sure that you are mindful of your own biases. We are all biased. If you think you're not biased, you're biased. But one of our biases is what's called a loss aversion bias. We don't like doing things where we think we could lose something that we value. And that might be our short-term sense of safety, our pride, that sense of certainty, that regular paycheck, the familiarity of the current job, the familiarity of our life and the status quo. And so that bias often has us overestimate the potential of loss, of losing something, and underestimating ourselves and our ability to deal with risk. We have another bias, which is the bias to discount the cost of playing it safe, being cautious, of sticking with the status quo. We're very good at putting ourselves in the shoes of the future, of us tomorrow, next week, and thinking, how will I feel if this doesn't work out? We're not so good at putting ourselves in the shoes of us 1 year, 3 years, 5 years from now, and asking ourselves, what's the price I'm going to pay here if I don't take this risk? What's the risk of not taking the risk? And so these biases drive us to sticking with what shores up that short-term sense of security. And yet so often people look back and it's the risk that they didn't take that they regret the most. Because when you don't have that conversation with that person to address an issue or something that's causing you to feel frustrated or resentful, you don't know what you're missing out on. You don't know what opportunities you haven't opened the door toward. You don't know what it is, what price you're paying. But we should never kid ourselves that we're not paying a price. And likewise, if you don't try something that you haven't done before and risk the failure, then you miss out on the opportunities to learn new skills, gain expertise, learn about what doesn't work. You miss the opportunities to connect with more people. You miss the opportunities to build your brand. And I know myself, the best things I've ever done have been the scariest things I've ever done, from, having my fourth child, to writing a book, to starting a new career with 4 little kids. All of those things, the fear was running high. And I was very aware that there were risks that I might fall flat, and I didn't always nail it. But I grew and I learned. And you grow by the doing, not by sitting back and perfecting your plan. So own your fear, reframe risk, but also be careful that you don't get stuck in the justification and the rationalization. We all have confirmation bias, and we're always looking for evidence that supports our current way of seeing things. And you're always going to be able to find reasons to justify the indecision or the procrastination or not making the change. And right now we know a lot of people are considering, do I make a job change? Do I make a career change? Do I go back into the office? What is it I should be doing from here? And so we're often looking around for evidence that supports our decision. And I encourage you to challenge your own best thinking. It is, admittedly, that is another chapter from Stop Playing Safe, which is about learn, unlearn, and relearn. But I have inside, and I just marked it here, this little risk reward matrix. And where is it? There it is there. And it gets you to go through a process of really identifying what's the upside and the downside of the key paths of action that you could take, of taking the risk. What's the upside? Well, you could gain something, could be awesome. What's the downside? Could go wrong, you might fail. What's the upside of not taking action? Well, you don't have to get uncomfortable. Things are going to be very predictable. You know exactly what's coming. What's the downside? And that's often what we get wrong. We do not adequately give thought to what's the downside of taking the cautious path. And finally, I just encourage you to not wait for courage, but to embody, like physiologically, when we connect to our own inner brave heart. Most of us are braver than we give ourselves credit for. But if you were going to really embody courage, if you were going to connect to that bravest part of yourself and consult with that bravest part of yourself, sometimes that consult with your future self. It's 30 years from now, what advice would I give me to do now? But if you get really still and get beneath all those little noises in the back of your head that are going, what if you fail? Who are you to do that? You might mess up. What will people say? And get really quiet and connect to that bravest part of you. And it's in every single one of us. And ask yourself, what does that voice of my true self want me to know? And chances are it will be to do something that may be quite uncomfortable. But don't discount the cost of spending too long in your comfort zone, because those moments of discomfort, they do pass. But when we hold back from doing those things and we just stick with those safe paths and what's comfortable and what's familiar and what's predictable, over time our confidence shrinks, windows close, and we actually miss out on the most valuable opportunities to discover that actually we never had a reason to doubt ourselves, to discover and cultivate strengths and talents, and to open new doors of opportunity up, not just for ourselves, but for other people, for all the people around you. When you're willing to put yourself out there and you role model courage, you role model the risk taking, you actually give other people permission to do the same. It's inspiring. And even when you don't land the result that you want, because let's face it, you will not always land the result you want. Even when you don't, you will always be better off for having dared to try. In fact, we have what's called a psychological immune system, and we can justify an excess of courage far more easily than an excess of cowardice. That fear, when we let fear keep us from doing what we know in our heart of hearts is really we're being called to do, whether it's in our professional lives, whether it's in our personal lives. So I encourage you to lean toward risk because the odds are better than you think, and to embrace the discomfort that I believe is really a prerequisite for living the life that you're capable of living, for honoring your own potential, for ultimately bringing out the potential in those around you, and for you to be able to look back one day and go, you know what? I gave it my very best. I've long thought, fear regret more than you fear failure. And because I believe that we fail so much more from timidity than we do from over daring. And while your brain may be constantly coming up with all the reasons why not, sometimes you've got to listen to that little tug on your heart and go, yeah, but why do I need to do this anyway? And just left brain, right brain, I know we've all got different personalities. Those of us who are highly analytical, the left brain's always highly analytical and logical. It's going to err more towards caution. The right half of our brain is more creative. It's more focused on possibilities. So if you're a very left brain, analytical control type, maybe you need to kind of just tap in, disrupt your own default and go, I need to really just ask myself, what is it that inspires me the most? Because what inspires you the most may scare you the most, but it's ultimately going to expand your future in the biggest way. So thank you for listening. And I hope you will pick up a copy of Stop Playing Safe, the new edition that I have rewritten really in the context of this time. And I would love to hear from you. If you have done something brave and you have been so glad that you did, even if it didn't land as you wanted, I would love to hear from you. Let me know. Feel free to pop a note in the comments. I also want you to know that I am taking a leap of faith and putting on my Live Brave Women's Weekend this November 12th to 14th. And if you would like to join me at that, I sure hope that you will. I will be sharing details of that in the days to come. But in a spirit of living bravely, I'd rather make your mission greater than your fear and be willing to take the chance, because what you want most is riding on it. Thank you, and I'll see you soon.